Hello and welcome to Robin's TV Extra Time as we reflect on Bristol City's trip up to East Anglia to face Norwich City and, of course, a reunion with somebody we're very familiar with in Liam Manning. It was a tense and nervous afternoon for both sets of fans, and here to reflect on all the action with me, Leroy Rossignol and Lewis Carey. Of course, a 1-0 victory in the end for the Reds, a fantastic result on the road. Leroy, you were watching from the studio, a really robust defensive display, and Bristol City ultimately took that all-important chance.
Look, they deserved it. I thought the first half, they were a team that played the more positive football, even though there was didn't seem to be a lot in it. But their attitude from the first whistle of the second half was just terrific. They got on the front foot, they played forward, they pressed high, they played quick football. And I just felt Norwich couldn't cope, and Norwich played in patches, but well-deserved 3 points by Bristol City.
Yeah, played in patches. We'll look at the statistics across the 90 minutes between the two sides, Lewis, and really that tells the tale possession-wise and then expected goals. If you're to look at those two in isolation, that really is a demonstration of the way the fixture went.
I think you look at the top three, isn't it? It's 60% possession for Norwich. It was so passive. It was big U shape. It was really comfortable and easy for City to defend. Expected goals, City way higher. They created a better chance, but it's how they created the chances. Like Leroy just alluded to, then they won the ball and they played forward quickly, and then it allowed them to have opportunities in the final third to have shots, whether they were from outside the box, inside the box. Is irrelevant. It was just they threatened the Norwich City goal way more than Norwich threatened our goal.
I love those stats. I know lots of people don't like stats, but you look at it from the young, you're right, absolutely right about the top three, but look from the bottom up. More interceptions, more duels, more corners, more offsides. I like teams who have more offsides because it suggests that you're trying to run in behind the opposition. Norwich at home only 2 offsides. And Lewis said it during commentary. Hardly ever saw them trying to run forward. But, City got offside a few times, but it was trying to get into the spaces in behind and be positive. And when that happens, that's when you get the forward passes. With Norwich, which one came first? They kept the ball, they didn't have the forward run, so they couldn't make the forward passes. With City, sometimes Mehmeti went too early, but they put it there. They kept on putting it in there. And that's what I like about this side under Gerhard Struber. He wants them to be positive and doesn't mind them making mistakes.
And I remember under previous managers where perhaps the shot count would be in single digits. Now to be exceeding the 20 mark just shows the sign of intent that Gerhard Struber enforces within his side, and that intent was shown early on. And Scott Twine, another positive performance from him, hit the side netting early on in the game.
Yeah, I mean, this was the first time where the ball, I think, went in the box, and Adam Randall found himself in this wide position. What I like, you see the white shirts in there, 4 white shirts in there. The more shirts you get in the box, the more chance you have of getting an opportunity on goal. And it was Emil Rees who just managed to get on the end of this, just chest it down. I don't know if he meant to chest it down to Scott Twine, but he instinctively just hits it on the half volley, and it's unfortunate it doesn't hit the target.
Absolutely. And then another player that impressed me personally, I think yourself as well on commentary across that defensive unit was Borges, and he had a good opportunity himself, both in an attacking sense and defensively. He seems to be really growing in a Bristol City shirt.
Yeah, he's got that sort of freedom on the left wing back area as well, and he's a fit young lad. Very good at arriving with the play, and very good defensively. What I love the fact that him and Mehmeti always created a 2v1 on the ball away fullback, and Mehmeti's run takes it away, and I thought the pass maybe should have come a little bit earlier, or for then Twine to dribble on the man and still create the 2v1 again. However, what makes up Borges' mind is how long it takes to come in. If it was played earlier, he would have gone on his left foot. However, the skill to come back on his right foot and to still use the defender as a little guide, look to bend it around and try and place it in the far corner was excellent. He was fantastic all afternoon.
Yeah, early goal almost for Bristol City. And this is where we really felt the two teams differed today. Tactically, two very able managers, of course, that set up their sides really diligently. But Leroy, it felt to me like at times Norwich were very negative, playing the ball backwards, and Bristol City really showed that forward passing intent.
I just wonder if both sets of players were doing what they'd been asked to do. So if from Norwich it's about keeping possession and waiting for that moment. I think, from a Norwich perspective, I'm not going on about Norwich, but I think they don't recognise the moment. And I think it's kind of drilled into them to go backwards and sideways and be safe. It absolutely drives me mad when I see players who are able to not turn and go back, because to the opposition, this is great. We just keep our shape. And so I thought City were comfortable, but I think City risked the ball. And when you risk the ball, you'll get more reward, believe me. They risk the ball going forward. They play sharp forward into spaces. And you look at the tempos, the 2 touches, and look at that. He's risked the ball, it's a lovely weighted pass. Yeah, it doesn't come off, and that was early in the game. But look what it does to the Norwich side. Gets them all running back to their goal. Again, forward pass, and then it's held up really well. And then you get runners. And even though they get the free kick, look at the Norwich having to run back to their goal, Lewis, and that's what the opposition don't like doing.
Yeah, I love it. I thought this was the one, that was the first one I can remember on commentary where I went, oh, that's really good. So your first thought is like forward, it's one pass, first pass in on goal, first touch forward, first pass forward. What it does is it allows then our 10s to always be aware that the ball's going to come, but also the Norwich lads start separating because they're playing and they build up slowly. So we find a free player with that one-touch deep pass all the time. And I thought Atkinson, Dickey and Tanner did that really well today. Mehmeti and Twine found themselves in really good positions to allow that to happen.
And the message is in the ball, Lewis, as well. You know, you've seen they're wrapping it into people. There's no way you can go and play one touch there. They're saying, get hold of that and get turned. You know, but we should play a bit, a bit of circle ball and just wrap it into people and touch the touch, have a little bit of fun. But there was a reason for it. And what you're doing, you're turning that person, hold that ball, get turned, and get the opposition. When you roll it in slowly, it means you're coming on and playing one touch, and everybody can get back in shape. And I think that's something that Gerhard has introduced, certainly from the back place.
That first pass forward is a coached. You know, it's a coach thing. It doesn't just happen. It's the position of the lads that are pressing high at the pitch. They know who the free player is, and then it's teaching back lads to do it, to see it, and then be able to perform it as well.
It's not always the case when players have dips in confidence, but it feels to me, and it's something that Liam Manning will have started at Bristol City and Strub has continued. There's a real high level. You know, we're not just picking out 2 or 3 players there that have the ability with the ball at their feet to play these balls forward. It's shared across the team. George Tanner maybe not known necessarily for that, but he looked really good today. And you mentioned all the defenders and the midfield players there. It's a real high level.
I think Rob Dickett is really important in passing that. I think Zach Viner as well, because they are really confident doing it. And you know what, encourages everybody else to do it. Rob Atkinson now does it. I think George is a little bit more nervous with the ball at times, and maybe will go safe. But he is now starting to think, do you know what? Let me play forward, you know, because and by the way, people will be telling him when he's played back, you can play it forward there. The 10s and the people high at the pitch be saying, look, we've made the runs, give us the ball, and it'll be coming from the coaches as well. So I really, when players get it at the back, yeah, you go sideways to come back to create a hole, to create a space. But when that space comes, I thought City used it really well.
I think that's a really key point, the fact that if you win the ball in and around your sort of defenders, yeah, you might go back to play forward. But when you press the opposition, they're unsettled and they're out of shape. So anytime you can play that first pass forward, that's the time you can hurt them.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, that took us through to half-time. Moving into the second half, we've bemoaned across the season, unfortunately, lack of impact from the bench. But today it really came, particularly in the 2 substitutes, Mark Sykes and Sinclair Armstrong, when they came on. This was a bit of a turning point. No fault of Ross McCrory's, who had a good game, picked up a booking, maybe something to do with it. But Sykes came off the bench and had real impact.
Yeah, but I love that. I like it. I hated being substitute. I don't mind him being upset to be coming off. But he knows that Mark Sykes is an able substitute, and this is a terrific run. The fullback's gone to sleep, Fisher, and he's not even watching Sykes in. Sykes, he just starts in behind him. Again, forward pass, forward run. And, the great ball, by the way, from Zach Vine. It's important that's a driven ball, not a chip ball. And it just slightly hesitates. It's a slight skip before he hits it, Mehmeti. I think he just feels it's going to come onto him a little bit quicker, and he has to take a little bit of a hop before he hits the ball. And it's unfortunate for him, it's closed down.
Again, that'll be a set-up practice at times. So Mehmeti's positioning, fullback thinks, is Viner going to go and play it into him? So he starts making that forward step. As he makes a forward step, you see Sykes run off the back of him. I think, it's a brilliant bit of football. And then Twine, who also comes short to show for the ball, brings the centre-back, and it gets chipped over, and then he makes the box, and that takes away the defender. It frees up Mehmeti again. So I thought all round it was a brilliant bit of football.
Lewis could play that ball as well, and that's why Lewis was so good at the back. The ball that Zach Viner plays is so important because we were saying about it being a driven ball. What it does as a defender, you think, I can't get it. It's gone over my head, because it's a driven ball, and then Mark Sykes gets there, and it's taking defenders out of the game. So Zach Viner's ball is a top quality pass, believe me. Not a lot of players can play that. It's like a 4-iron or a 5-iron, where it's just like that. You put a little bit of flight on it, and defenders get back and head it, or just flick it away for a corner. He didn't. He drove it into Sykes' is top quality.
Yeah, and Viner today, of course, levelling Marvin Elliott with 218 appearances in the Championship for Bristol City. That bit of build-up play led to the goal, and Anis Mehmeti, of course, missed the opportunity, but then picked himself back up. Good bit of skill, and that was the deadlock broken.
Yeah, this is what Mehmeti's really good at, isn't it? He's, he's a really good ball carrier. He brings players into him, but he turns it back into players a lot. However, at times to read it and understand when you can play it through people's legs, like the lad who he's just beat there's moaning at the lads in the middle of the box for not defending it, whereas you've just been beat too easy. But also it's the delivery that he does. Like you see Borges here turn around to say well done to him, because it's the delivery, the flatness of it. Look, a lovely little touch from Reece, but a brilliant run again from Atkinson. Look, it takes the fullback in. It frees up Sykes at the back post. And again, a clever finish. Not an easy finish, just does enough to get it on goal and into the ground and over the goalkeeper.
And Leroy, from your experience, would he have consciously sort of bobbled it into the ground in order to lift it over the keeper?
He's just concentrating on getting a really good contact. And what I really like about that goal is that not only, which you mentioned, Rob Atkinson being there, I don't know if but in behind there, we just talking about Zach Viner getting in the box, and Zach Viner, he's recognised that Rob Atkinson's got in the box. He's actually organising in behind him. As the ball's going in the box, Zach's telling, I think, what's saying, you stay there, I'll stay here. So even though Rob Atkinson's in the box, whatever's happening behind him is totally organised in case there is a counter attack. It ends up in the back of the net at this time, but that's just great communication. For Rob to, why was he there? Because he's been given licence to do that. He's been encouraged. If you find yourself in the box, don't go running back to defend, which most coaches say, just get the shape back, get our defenders back. You go and stay in the box. The best head of the ball, you stay in the box. If he isn't there, it doesn't end up in the back of the net.
Yeah, and more impact from the bench came from Sinclair Armstrong. Fresh haircut, fresh impetus. He came on, laid it on a plate for Anis Mehmeti, and he had, both defensively and offensively, a real impact.
Well, look, the secret is he's been to the same barber as me, and it's a sharp haircut and some sharp play. And you know what? He does really well. And Lewis pointed it out. Not only what he did well, he used his power and his strength, and then to get his head up, and then he just rolls it towards that penalty spot, encouraging Anis to take it first time. And really, I think Anis gets his run wrong, and it ends up slightly behind him. That's why he takes the touch. But if he just reads that, he should come on and just hit that first time.
And Lewis, you actually touched on it. I think Gerhard Struber made a point of going across to him after the game had finished and wrapped his arm around him. And it can be one or two contributions at the end there, but they're really important ones, and that can lift his confidence.
100%, because what that does to the Norwich crowd is it gets them moaning, isn't it, and complaining about their team, so it creates a negative environment again, and City can then thrive off that negativity. Like I said, I just think the message was running behind the young fullback who's come on. Fullback's going to come on, he's going to push forward because they're going to try and chase the game. So run between fullback and centre-back and cause problems. That's what he did, but I think that's the first time I've actually seen him come on and, have a conscious look to pick somebody out rather than just doing something because you're in that position. It was really, it was really clever and showed that he's either learning, picking stuff up, and just constantly improving.
I think what helped him was it was two up front.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, I think it makes it a lot less space to cover when you're working across that front line, and then when there's someone in the box, so he gets there and he knows somebody's going to be in the box, and he was really positive. And the other thing is, Emil sacrificed himself in the second half. Obviously Twiney came up. Emil went and played right-sided midfield in the four and said, look, you go and play out. That's experience. He just went and sat they went 5-4 and he went and played right side. And that's really good experience play to say, I'll sacrifice myself. Sinclair, you go and play up the top of the pitch.
Well, food for thought then for Struber going into Tuesday. The foundation of that victory, of course, and that clean sheet was a strong defensive display all the way across that back line, Lewis. It's hard to just pick any one person out. Dickey didn't put a foot wrong, but contributions all across there.
I thought they were outstanding. Any ball that did come in the box, even though there wasn't too many, they generally got first contact. The same with set plays. I think the way Norwich play with the big U-shaped pass, and it is easy for defenders to slide and move across the pitch. Like Leroy said, not many Norwich lads ran in behind, which means it's easy because you haven't got to pick anybody. And any time they played into the sort of 10 position, one of the centre-backs, outside centre-back, stepped in. So really comfortable, but also, credit to people like Dickey because they've kept Sargent, who's, an excellent footballer, really quiet. And goalkeepers made a couple of really good saves when called upon, and that's what's needed. And I think that's the whole reason the clean sheets come about.
Well, let's look at those key saves. Radek Vitek, fine form again, another clean sheet, and he's turning into a lone player that's made a massive contribution so far, Leroy.
Yeah, when he's called upon, and he wasn't called upon too often, when he's called upon, he seems to be in the right position at the right time. That's all about his positional play. I know Lewis said this should have been a goal, it's a poor pass, but he seems like he takes that step forward just at the right time and meets him at the right time, and he's really brave as well. Just at key moments, you think, okay, the back line have been beaten, but he's going to take a lot to beat him. I mean, that wasn't Schlupp, didn't mean that, by the way. That was meant to be a cross, and I think Radek was caught out by that as well because he expected the cross as well. Just jumped a little bit too early and made more of it than it should have been. But he's been so impressive, and this one, I think again he does really well because he waits. He could have dived in, and if he gets that touch away from him, he brings Sargent down, but he just waits for him to take the touch. It slightly gets away from him, and then he makes his move, and he times it perfectly.
How many times as well have you seen goalkeepers chase the next action, and then when a cross comes in, it's a free header into an empty goal. So, again, brilliant awareness of his positioning.
Yeah, discipline enough to get back between the sticks quickly. And Max O'Leary back on the bench today. Leroy's he's gonna find it hard to force his way back into the team with the way this man's performing.
But the other thing is he's going to put pressure on this guy as well.
Yes.
Yeah, to keep performing. And that's what we've been saying about the bench. Players coming off, and not just the impact, but what it does to the teams, the players who are performing week in, week out. So now Radek knows, even though he's been brilliant, that he's got to keep that form because the first team keeper in training and on a Tuesday, on a Saturday, is waiting for him to make a few mistakes. But he's been terrific since he's come through the door.
Yeah. All things considered, today's performance, given the players that we could endlessly list that are on the sidelines that have contributed so much to Bristol City, both at the start of this season and last season, and the pressure admittedly Liam Manning and Norwich City have been under, a really good performance with a pretty threadbare team, Lewis.
Exactly that. I think it's a really well coached team, a really well coached performance. The boys didn't have to come out of their shape too much. I thought they were comfortable against the ball, and then any time they won the ball, they broke really well. They created opportunities, and then in the second half, the spell when we scored was the time that the fans started to get on the Norwich City players' backs, and we took advantage of it. And it was a much deserved win. It's a clean sheet. It's an excellent result. It keeps the unbeaten run away from home going and keeps Norwich's sort of winless home start to the season going. We just need to now back this up after the first win in sort of 5.
Yeah, return that to home form as well.
Absolutely, and the international break came at a good time because Rob Atkinson was just operating on fumes, wasn't he? And you could see the energy levels of the team, of the players. And you're right, more or less he's operating with 13, 14 players at most, and they needed that break. And you saw, the impact that had on their performance. And I'm great believer in, I like to play 90 minutes, and players are only tired, it's mental. But in today's game, the introduction of subs after an hour, 65 minutes, when you've got the quality, makes a big difference to the performance. So you haven't got that at the moment. So that group of players are absolutely giving everything, and it will give them a massive lift coming home against Southampton on Tuesday.
Yeah, we could talk endlessly about individual performances, but we wouldn't have time. Both, thank you very much again for your contribution today. Right, that's it from us on Robin's TV Extra Time. Of course, Bristol City back in action against Southampton on Tuesday. A very special night for the man to my left. keep your eyes peeled for that. Special presentation for Lewis Carey on the night. Thank you for joining us once again. A brilliant win on the road for Bristol City against Norwich City. We'll see you next time.